Hello everyone, welcome to another installment of my tutorials. This time we're gonna work on Debian Server Bullseye 11 and I'm gonna install today CSF which is config, server security and firewall. So basically it's a firewall that you can use on your Debian server. To be honest, I think I skipped it before when I was doing my full tutorial on Debian Server Bullseye. So this time I'm installing it. What is CSF? Well, CSF is a free and advanced firewall management tool based on IP tables. It provides a quite high level of security on your server and is very straightforward, making it easy to set up and install on all supported Linux distributions. So it has many great features such as port scanning. It can protect from synfold attacks, brute force attacks. One of the very nice features of CSF is that it provides a built-in web UI for managing the firewall from a web browser. This UI integration is supported by cPanel, DirectAdmin, as well as working independently on your server. So basically, you can either work with CSF with commands from your server, or you can just work from a web UI, from a web browser. That's the first thing about CSF. It has two main services. The first one is called CSF, and the second one is called LFD. So LFD, that's a login failure daemon, and LFD actually is a process that monitors the log files and sends email notifications based on CSF configuration rules. So there's two main services that we're gonna work with here. Okay, so first thing, we'll need to actually install some additional libraries, because without them we won't be able to install CSF. So let's begin with the first library, which is this one. I'm just gonna pull it down. Okay, almost done. Now we're gonna pull down the second library. And at the end we're gonna pull down the third library. And as an addition, I'm gonna also install one more thing. Without it, you might have problems with the install of this particular firewall. So remember to install lib www. Okay, so once again the install is being performed on the server, Debian server, the newest one, Bullseye edition. Okay, now let's check what we have actually. Okay, so now using wget, I'm gonna pull down which I have installed on my server. If you want to install wget, you just need to type in apt install wget. I'm gonna pull down the actual CSF zipped file, which we're gonna then have to, of course, unpack. So wget download.configserver.com csf.tgz. So once you have downloaded this package, you have to run the unpacking command to extract the package in the current working directory. So we're going to use this command. The X means to extract, and V is for verbose option, Z is for gzip compression, which means the file is compressed. F stands for an archive file name. So we got that unpacked. As you can see, here's our unpacked CSF folder. And once the archive has been extracted, you will have a new folder named CSF. The CSF directory has all the files and the installation that you need to install CSF on Debian Server. So now we need to move into the CSF directory and run the sudo bash install.sh command to install CSF on our system. So we will need to change the directory with cd, change directory, CSF, and we're gonna run sudo bash. We're gonna run the script install.sh. So here is the install that is proceeding. The install has been completed. At this point we have correctly installed CSF on our Debian server, but we still need to check if iptables modules are available on our system, because iptables are used in the creation of CSF rules and firewalls. So let's check if all the modules of iptables are being used. So as you can see, testing went well. We have all the OKs everywhere. CSF should function on this server. So we got our firewall installed. And after this, we will go to our basic firewall configuration. So if you want to configure CSF firewall, you will need to edit the configuration file, which is called csf.conf. In this tutorial of mine, I'm gonna use nano. So we're gonna go to etc csf.conf, and here is our main configuration file that we're gonna work with. So the first thing we need to check is the configuration files. If the configuration files, what kind of ports are open on the server, because typically by default the most commonly used ports are already opened, but sometimes we need to open a specific port on the server. So for that we will need to find allow incoming TCP ports, which is here. So here are the incoming TCP ports, as you can see. here we have all the outgoing TCP ports, incoming UDP ports, and outgoing UDP ports. I'm gonna make a small change here in the incoming TCP ports. I'm gonna pick another port of my own that I'm gonna utilize later on for web UI. So if some of the default listed services are not being used on your server, the best practice is to close them, of course. The less access there is to ports on your server, the better the security, of course, of the server. Okay, so let's go to another thing that is quite important here. So ICMP. As you know, ICMP is related to ping. So let's check ICMP in. So as you can see, allow incoming pings. If it's set to 1, everything that is set to 1 is enabled. So we're gonna actually disable this option. So I don't want any pings coming into my server. So this option is to control the availability of your server for pings. By default, this is set to 1, so that it can allow all incoming ping requests. If you choose to disable this option, you will not be able to use external monitoring system. Another option that we're gonna check is called ignore allow. So let's check this one. It's called ignore allow, and it's set here. So if you enable this option, LFD will ignore all IP addresses that are listed in the CSF allow file. This option can be useful if you use a static IP address at home or in your office, and you can be sure that this IP address will never be blocked from the server's firewall. So basically that's what the ignore allow is. Another thing I was talking about is regarding synflood attacks. So synflood, and here it is. In this section, it's called port flood settings. Enable synflood protection. We have like 3 different options here: synflood, synflood rate, and a synflood burst. So this option should only be enabled if you know you're under a synflood attack, as it will slow down all the connections from any IP addresses to the server if triggered. So bear that in mind. Alright, let's go to another option. So let's check now LF alert 2. I'm gonna check this option, LF alert 2, and here we have it. There are actually 2 options, LF alert from and to. So this is where you define the email address that you want to use for alerts. So basically, if you have an email address that is dedicated for any alerts regarding the server, you can put the email address here. You will receive all the required notifications about any kind of problems happening at your server at any given time. Okay, the next option we'll take a look upon is testing. It's called testing. So testing, here we have it. So by default, the testing is set to 1. This means that the CSF enables a cron job that clears your IP tables configuration in case of configuration problems when you start CSF. This is a precautionary measure that should help you avoid getting locked out of your server. Once you are completely sure that all the settings are okay, you can set the value to 0 which will enable the LFD service. So basically, when you are done with this config file and you have configured everything as you would like it to be, the last thing you need to do is change testing from 1 to 0, which I'm gonna do right now. So if it goes to like basic settings, basic stuff, like really basic, that was the things that you should know about this firewall. Of course, there is a ton of other settings here. I'm gonna go through some of them, but for now, for the basics, that's all. Let's just save it. And now let's clear the screen. And another thing, once we actually defined the settings, we need to enable our CSF and enable our LFD. So let's actually use systemctl to enable LFD. And now let's use systemctl to enable CSF. After that, let's restart our CSF. Okay. I'm gonna pull up my server for a moment. Gonna clear the screen. I'm gonna do restart LFD as well. Okay, so basically we have restarted both of those. Both of those services, as you can see, LFD is running fine. And now I'm just gonna check and CSF is active and running also fine. Okay. Unfortunately, after the restart I have been scratched from the server with SSH, so I needed to log in back. Right, so next thing we will cover about CSF and LFD is notifications. So one of many options of the CSF and LFD are the various notifications that can help you monitor the events on your server. So I will go to the configuration file once again, because we're gonna use that, of course, now. So let's start with the system integrity alerts that check for changes in certain system files. These notifications help to detect compromised files, but you will also receive emails when changes are made, legitimate system updates. You can leave these these types of notifications if you want to track changes made to your system. And if you have decided not to receive those notifications, you can disable them by finding the LF integrity parameter. So basically, the main parameter here will be called LF integrity. This is the main parameter. If you want to disable it, just set this one to 0. So that's the main parameter. You can, of course, also change it from the command prompt. If you want to change it from the command prompt without going to the config file, you can do it with this command. So seed minus I LF integrity, this is the parameter, then slash LF integrity, new parameter, and then slash G and etc CSF. First, I'm not gonna use it right now, not gonna change it. The second type of notification that we would like to talk about here, well, I would like to also mention these types of is the excessive resource usage alert. These types of notifications are probably the most common, because LFD had a feature that can monitor processes running on your server and send you emails if they use too many resources. The purpose of those notifications is to track the most intensive process, which can cause loading issues on the server. If you have decided not to receive those notifications, you can disable them by finding PT user meme and PT user time. So let's check for those. First one is PT user meme, which is here, and then PT user time, which is here. So to disable them, you need to just input zeros here. And zero parameters, or you can just again use the commands, which is the first command, this one, that changes user time, and the second command for user meme is this one. It's really easy to change different things in the configuration file, because you basically use this as a beginning, then you just set the parameter that you want to change. You set what's in the parameter, you set the new parameter, what's in the new parameter, and then slash G, and you just give where actually the changes need to be taken, where the change is gonna take effect. So you can just basically copy this and change different kind of parameters in the config file. Okay, the process tracking option examines suspicious executable files or open network ports on the server. These notifications help to detect potentially exploitive processes, even if these processes appear as a system service. Let's open this. If you have decided not to receive these notifications, you can disable them by finding PT limit. Okay, so let's take a look here. PT limit is here. The following is the number of seconds the process has to be active before it is inspected. If you set this time too low, then you will likely trigger false positives. Remember about this with CGI or PHP scripts. So I suggest also reading what is in those sections before you actually take any kind of changes here, because there's quite a lot of valid information around. And again, of course, if you want to change this parameter from your command file, command prompt, you can do it by this command. So changing the limit to 0. Okay. So next thing, CFS and LLD has the power to block IP addresses from certain reasons. Each time the system blocks an IP address, you will be notified by email containing the IP address that has been blocked and the reason why it was blocked. If you want to manage this type of notifications, you can open your csf.conf file and find the following options. So actually, let's start with the first option regarding blocking IP addresses, which is gonna be called LF email alert. So that's the first one, and it is here. Send an email alert if an IP address is blocked by one of the triggers. And this is enabled. The second one is going to be called LF perm block alert. Let's look for this one. And here it is. Perm block alert. If an IP address was blocked more than a few times, to configure the count of actually, because this is the count that is responsible for attempts. If there is more than 4 attempts, an IP address is gonna be blocked. So I can even change this attempt to like 2 times. So after 2 times, the IP address is gonna be blocked. And this is the time interval that is gonna take to unblock the IP address. So this particular option is responsible for sending an email notification when the IP address is permanently blocked. So actually it's going to be permanently blocked, because I thought this is the time interval after which it's going to be unblocked, but no. Okay, so next thing that we're going to check is going to be called LF netblock alert. So the netblock alert, it's here, LF netblock alert. If an IP network class was blocked, you will receive an email notification. So this time we're talking about a network class, not an IP address. And next, what we have on our map, the next option is gonna be called LF dist FTP alert. So got it here. So if LF dist FTP is triggered, so this is triggered, you will receive an email notification with IP addresses that have been blocked with a reason for being involved in a FTP distributed attack. Sorry. Okay, so let's check now LF dist SMTP. LF dist SMTP. So if LF dist SMTP alert, so this one, this is the alert that's gonna send you the email, and this is the parameter that is responsible for that. So if LF dist SMTP is triggered, you will receive an email notification with IP addresses that have been blocked with a reason for being involved in a SMTP distributed attack. Okay, next thing is called LT email alert. Let's check LT email alert, which is here. So LT email, if an account exceeds the number of daily logins per IP address, then you will receive an email alert. Okay, next we're gonna check CT email alert. Let's go and check CT email alert. CT email alert is here. If an IP address is blocked due to connectivity tracing, then you will receive an email alert. These types of email alerts are triggered by the CT limit, so they're triggered by this feature. the CT limit option is meant to protect your server from DOS attacks. Right, so basically, let's save everything. Okay, and if you would be interested, of course, in turning off all of those notifications regarding emails and SMTP, FTP, NetBlock, PermBlock, you can always use, I will maybe paste them here, all of those particular PermBlock. Yeah, so basically that's like unfortunately I would just have to I'm just gonna paste them here. So these are all the actual commands regarding all of those configuration options. So you have here the email option, the SMTP option, the FTP option, NetBlock option, PermBlock option, and the first email notification option that we were talking about. Alright, so I think this covers all the notifications that you can receive from this firewall. Of course, after making all the changes, you need to restore the CSF and LFD. Okay, so next thing I wanted to talk about is managing the CSF from the command line, of course, because I just showed some of the commands you can use, but maybe now we can talk a little bit more about the commands. So let's start with the basic commands like start, stop, and restart, reload CSF. So if you want to start CSF, you can use CSF -S. If you want to stop the service, you use -F. If you want to reload everything, you use -R, which I'm gonna do right now, because after I have changed different things in my configuration, you should actually reload all the firewall config. As you can see here I have a warning. I have restrict syslog is disabled, so I will actually copy this and I will go to the configuration file. I will look for it. Here it is, and I'm going to enable this. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to restart the firewall again. Now everything is fine, no warnings. Okay, so like I said, so start, stop, reload. Next thing, if you would like to, let's say, allow an IP address or whitelist an IP address that's commonly known for everybody that uses firewalls and they know the security thing. So if you would like to add an IP address, all you need to do is type CSF -A and then you type the IP address, which we're gonna do right now. I'm just gonna add this bogus IP address. And if you want to actually check what's in the CSF allow file, all you need to do is access through nano etc CSF, and then of course CSF Firewall file. Really straightforward stuff. And here is our bogus IP address, which was added manually. As you can see, the firewall is even able to, thanks to the IP address, it can distinguish from where the IP address is coming from, so it's South Korea. And here we have the date and time when this was added. So if I would like to actually remove this IP address from my allow list, what I need to do is type in CSF -AR, so remove the append, and I'm gonna remove my IP address from here. And now if we open allow, it's empty, it has been removed. If I would like to deny an IP address and add this IP address to the deny list, so blacklist an IP address actually. So this time we're talking about denying any addresses. I'm gonna use CSF -D, so deny. I'm gonna add this to the deny list right now, and of course analogically CSF deny. As you can see, the IP address has been added again, manually denied. Where from is the IP address and date and time when it was denied access to our server. Of course, if I would like to remove this particular IP address from the deny list, I will use CSF -deny and R. So now it's going to be removed. If you would like to actually unblock all the IP addresses that landed in your CSF denied list, you can just use the option CSF -df, which is gonna flush all of the IP addresses stored in the CSF deny list. So if we would like to search for a pattern match in IP tables regarding IP seed report number, you can always use CSF -G and then the IP address. As you can see, no match is found in IP tables for this particular address. The same goes for IPv4, IPv6 tables. This is IPv4 tables, this is IPv6. No matches were found for this particular IP address. So to display the current list of temporary allow and deny IP entries, we will use here the command CSF -T. As you can see, there are no temporary IP entries here, temporary. Well, just to maybe specify something, let's add maybe let's place an IP address on the temporary deny list. So if you would like to check what's on the temporary deny list, the temporary deny list is being located in varlib csf.tempban. So here it's gonna be located, and now we are gonna actually add something to it. So we're gonna use CSF -td, gonna specify the address, and we're gonna call it add traffic patterns, all the traffic patterns. Now when we actually open our temp.pen file, you can see that we have added the auto traffic patterns here. And now if we actually go back to our CSF-T, so we would like to list display the current list of temporary allow and deny IP entries. Let's see again what it shows. As you can see now, it displays in the deny file that we have this IP address, auto traffic patterns, as you can see. Check for updates to CSF and upgrade if available. So for updates and upgrades, we're gonna use CSF-U, so upgrades. So CSF is already at the latest version. If we want to actually disable both CSF and LFD services completely, we will use here CSF-X, which is going to disable both of those services. And if we want to enable those services, both of them, we will use CSF-E to enable both of them. If we want to display the version of our CSF, we will use -V, which is version. And we have version 14.17. If we would like to check more options of the CSF, all we need to do is use CSF -H for help. And here you have quite a lot of different things you can check. Starting with options. This manual document is the CSF command line option for the config server and security firewall. See the etc CSF CSFconf and etc CSF readme.txt. So help file, status, start, stop, so restart, restart all. Quite a lot of different options here. You can check them out. Okay, so we have actually went through like the basic things. We went through some of the commands. Let's check maybe some more of the commands. So let's say I would like to allow an IP address. So maybe let's do this one again. So I'm gonna do CSF-A and I'm gonna allow this IP address and I'm gonna call it home IP address. So it has been added. So if I would like to remove an IP address from my temporary IP, the ban or allow list, just remember it's temporary, not the actual list, but the temporary list. I will use CSF-TR and then of course specifying the IP address. And if I want to flush all the temporary entries, I'm gonna use CSF-TF, which is gonna flush all of them. So I flushed the one that I have here, temporary block removed, and there are no temporary IP allows. If I would like to make a fast deny for an IP address that is bugging me, I can just do CSF-D, so -deny, blocked, the guy is blocked. Of course, if I would like to unblock this IP address, I will do CSF -dr, and I'm gonna just put the IP address, and now the address is unblocked. If I would like to remove all the or unblock all the entries from the deny list, I use CSF-df. It's gonna scratch everything from the block list. Well, okay, so I think that will cover the majority of command lines. So next step we would want to take here is, of course, going to the web UI. So if you would like to actually handle our CSF firewall through the web browser, not through the command line, for that we will need to install some Perl modules. So these are the Perl modules that you need to install in order for your web UI to work. As you can see, I already have installed them previously. Next thing we need to go is we need to open our CSF config file, and here we need to find the web UI. So I'm just gonna search for UI port. I think that's the fastest way. UI dash or underscore port, and here it is. Here are our UI options that we're gonna use. So basically here what we need to do is we need to change this option from 0 to 1, which I'm gonna do right now. Here we need to specify a port that we're gonna use, and through this port we're gonna actually which is gonna be utilized to connect to the server. So if you remember, I've added an additional port which is this one previously in the TCP allow ports, incoming and outgoing. Here I'm gonna leave it blank as it suggests, so thanks to that it's gonna bind to all the IP addresses. You can of course specify an IP address here if you would like to, and down here I'm just gonna change my username to admin and my password. Let's say this one is gonna be something like that. Okay, so now let's actually save everything. After this, what we need to actually add, one more thing that you will need to add is the IP address of the computer that you are gonna actually use the browser on to connect to your server, because you need to allow this IP address on the UI allow list, so not in the allow list itself, but you will use the UI allow list. Remember not to mix those two. So here you need to put your not public IP address, but you need to actually put your IP address of your let's say PC that you're gonna utilize to connect to the server. So at the moment I'm gonna input here my IP address, which is gonna be added to the UI allow list. I'm just gonna pause the video for now. I'm gonna be back in a moment. Okay, so my entry has been added. And now, of course, we need to again do CSF -R. So we're gonna restart the firewall right now. After that, we're just gonna go I'm gonna restart CSF. We're gonna restart LFD. Okay, now let's pull up a web browser. Let's do HTTPS. Now I'm gonna input the IP address of my Debian server, which has the installment of my firewall and the port. Of course, it's unsecured, so I need to, of course, say that yes, I want to allow the security, and here we are. Now I just need to use my login and password. And at the moment we are logged into our CSF version 14.7, and this is from our web browser. So let's check what we have here actually. So we are leaving the command lines and we are going to web UI right now. So as you can see, we have some server information here. We can immediately check server security, perform a basic security, stability and settings check for the server, which I can just check upon because this server is just my test server, it's not my real one. Let's see what the check came up with. So LF pop 3D option check. This option helps prevent brute force attacks, so probably this option is not turned on in the configuration file. And this option helps prevent brute force attacks as well, so we will need to actually check those two options. Syslog check option and this one, so we basically need to enable those three options. SSH, use DNS. You should disable use DNS by editing etc SSH config and settings. Use DNS to no. Otherwise, LFD will be unable to track SSHD login failures successfully. And the last thing, server services check. Check server services. On most services, the following services are not needed and should be stopped and disabled for starting unless used. So these are the services that our firewall says that need to be disabled because they are not needed. Stopped and disabled. So basically this is the main check. This is my score. I have 34 from 39, so not so bad, I guess. I had some things here, and it's only a test server, as I might remind you. I don't work on this, it's only for the purpose of a video. So if somebody wants to hack this IP address, go ahead, no problem. It's not gonna live for long anyway. Okay, firewall information. So what do we have here? We have quite a lot of different information here from the readme file, I guess. Yeah, different kind of options. You can see what lists are, what every list does. So you have like CSFconf, the main configuration file, allow a list of IP and CIDR addresses that should be always allowed through the firewall, deny, ignore a list of IP and CIDR addresses that are that LFD should ignore and not block if detected. And now here is CSF ignore again with the star. Various ignore files that list files users IP that LFD should ignore. So here is quite a lot of different things and some examples of as well how to use different stuff. Include statement in the configuration files. You can use an include statement in the following files that conform to the format of the originating file. So we have here all the CSF files, I think. Command line options, something we were talking about previously. Login tracking, script email alerts, process tracking, directory watching, advanced allow deny filters. Really quite a lot of handy stuff here. I suggest taking a look. Okay, so watch system logs. Let's check system logs. So here are our logs. You can check them out. Search system logs. You can search for something here in different locations, of course. View listening ports. Here we have all our ports that are open. You can view them. What kind of executable is using this port? For example, Apache is using quite a lot of ports. Perl is using the port here 665 at the moment. Of course, the way of connecting, so TCP, UDP. Check for IPs in RBLs. Check whether any of the server's IP addresses are listed in the block lists. Update all checks. View IP tables log. This is really handy. No log entries found. Upgrade. Manual check. So we can do an upgrade if there is a new version. Here we have our quick actions. So we can quick allow something, deny something, ignore or unblock. Firewall configuration. So this is basically the config file. So you have everything neatly done here. On, off, you can just turn something on and off. Really nicely done. Everything is written here, what it does, so all you need to do is just read and read. So you will gain all the knowledge that you need about all the options. Okay, firewall profiles. So we have like pre-configured profiles, so block all perms, all temp, disable alerts, protection high, protection low, protection medium, reset to defaults. So they even gave us like predefined profiles here that we can choose. If somebody doesn't know how to set things up, you can just use protection high and you can go to the config file and see what kind of stuff is being turned on and how it's configured. So You don't even need to read about it this much. You can just use this option and see what you should be utilized. What do we have here? Backup, CSF conf, create a backup. So just create a backup file. Let's call it backup 1, create backup. And the backup is being created and it's stored in varlib CSF backup. Okay, what do we have here? View IP table rules, of course. So here are all the rules at the moment. TCP, UDP, accept. So bear in mind when you install the firewall, it already comes with some predefined stuff. Search for an IP address. Firewall allow IPs, firewall deny IPs. So basically you can just go to this is the allow list. As you can see, CSF allow. You can just add all the IP addresses, or you can do it from and then click change, or you can do it from the command line. It's all up to you. The same deny list, enable the firewall, disable the firewall, restart the firewall, quick restart, temporary allow deny. So after giving all the details here, you can just click it and it will be added. Temporary IP entries, I have none. Deny server IPs, so deny list, deny the access. Deny all access to IP addresses. So we can basically lock our server, so nothing is gonna come into the server actually. Flush all blocks, so all the blocks that being performed in the block list and temporary IP entries. Everything from CSF deny and the temporary IP. The blocks are gonna be flushed. Firewall redirect connections to this server to other ports' IP addresses. Fix common problems. Offer solutions to some common problems when using SPE firewall. Let's see what we have here. These options should only be used as a last resort, as most of them will reduce the effectiveness of the CSF and LFD to protect the server. So basically here you have some additional things, some additional options. As you can see, this is disabled, this is disabled. So already we have actually done something from this. What do we have next? We have now LFD, so login failure daemon. Of course, we can check the status. And basically the same as systemctl status. We can restart. We can edit the ignore file, directory file watching, like the directory file watching, so CSF watch. LFD dynamic DNS, edit the dynamic DNS file, so CSF and the DNS. All listed domains will be resolved and allowed through the firewall, so everything you add here is going to be resolved and allowed to your server. Edit email alert template, So basically you can edit this. How the email notification is gonna look like when you receive one regarding some kind of problem on your server. Okay, so what do we have next? LFD log scanner files. So log files, as you can see. LFD blacklists, of course. LFD syslog users. And of course, at the end we have test IP tables, which we have done after the installment of this firewall. So basically it's the same kind of command. We can run it and it checks that everything is fine and all the IP tables are being utilized as they should be. Now let's go to Info tab. What do we have here in the Info tab? Well, we have of course our server check, firewall information. I think this is just everything. Here you can just specify different things from here. Actually, yeah, this is regarding CSF, this is regarding LFD and other stuff, so test IP tables. So basically, if you go to all, then you have the options in one site, or you can just pick different options from here if you would like to. Well, and that's it, I think, for CSF. If you like the video, of course, like, subscribe, and well, I would of course like to see you watching my next video. So if you feel like being a Patreon, then of course you're free to go to my Patreon side and help out the channel. Okay, so thanks for listening. This was supposed to be a short video, but again it's a long one, so thanks, and I will see you in the next one.